rebinded Epictetus, we rebinded Seneca, but we still haven't rebinded someone who marked the Stoicism. And that someone would be Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. A lot of people saw him as the best example in Roman history, the best emperor in Roman history. So let's talk about his story and let's talk about the final design. Marcus Aurelius Verus, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but he was only 3 years old when his father died. This meant that he didn't have a father growing up. He only had his grandfathers who took care of him. However, despite this happening, I feel like Marcus Aurelius was very composed at a very young age. He was disciplined. He had like different traits than other regular kids, which caught the attention of the Emperor Hadrian, which at that time was the Emperor of Rome. And Hadrian didn't have any kids. Basically, what Hadrian did is adopted the senator, his loyal senator. He adopted his loyal senator with the condition to adopt young Marcus, and also another guy who's gonna be Marcus' stepbrother, Lucius Verus, which we'll talk about him shortly later. So Hadrian decides to adopt this 50-year-old man whose name is, I'm gonna pronounce it wrong, but whose name was Titus Aurelius Fulvus Boinius Arius Antonius, which that's where Marcus Aurelius comes from. Marcus Aurelius Antonius. The adopted father of Marcus Aurelius adopted Marcus and his brother Lucius Verus, who, fun fact, Marcus shared the throne with him. Instead of saying, he was the older brother, Marcus was the older brother, but instead of saying, hey, you're not allowed to take the throne because it's mine, Marcus was like, you know what, let's share the throne. And that's what he did. He shared the throne with his brother, but of course, in history, he took the hardest choices. That's why his brother's not as mentioned as Marcus. Anyways, when his adopted father dies, Marcus Aurelius is confronted with a bunch of different things that he hasn't seen, he wasn't prepared for. There were plagues, there was a war, there were economic problems, there was like a civil war. There was this guy trying to take over his empire, like a bunch of things going on. He got to see a lot of death. Not even of the people, the citizens. He was able to see death from his own family. He lost many, many, many children. And well, he did have like a bunch. He had 13 children, and he lost like all of them. Only one remained. So Marcus, with all of this, he is faced with the responsibility of taking over Rome, like taking care of his people. And like any other emperor, he could have fled. He could have been like, you know what, this is not my responsibility, goodbye. But no, Marcus was different. He was like, you know what, we're gonna use this as inexperience. We're gonna test our character, and we're gonna use this to grow, you know. So yet, in the middle of this chaos, this is where Meditations was written. Not for people, not in a fancy library, not in a nice coffee shop, not in his living room, nothing. He was probably writing all of these messages during warfare, during uncomfortable nights, during loss of a bunch of people. He was writing to himself. He never meant to publish this book ever. It was just reminders of himself to be strong mentally, to be strong, to be a good man. That's what he will always repeat in his book. To be a good man, to remember that we're gonna die. He will always say, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And this is powerful now that you piece things together. Like, this is not just like a self-improvement guru just saying, hey, gotta control your mind. He was living through this. He was talking about death because he was seeing multiple people die. He was talking about strength because there were times where he couldn't find the strength. And the external world was telling him, hey, like, we are failing. We're having economic problems. We're not gonna make it through this. He was experiencing grief, pain, illness, war, plagues. He was experiencing having to make political decisions every time. Like, people were constantly bombarding him with a bunch of information, a bunch of things, you know. And would it be justifiable if he lost his mind, if he lost his control over himself, over his character? That would be justifiable, but by everything that he was going through. But no, instead of complaining and instead of acting like a victim, he will find a way to come back to the same question of, how do I meet this situation with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, which are principles, keys to the Stoic world. So with that being said, I really wanted to just honor this book and give this book a new cover. So let's show you the final review. Hopefully you enjoy Marcus Aurelius story